Christmas Eve at the Morrison house in Westchester was always a production. Mom went all out, 12-foot tree in the foyer, professionally decorated, catered appetizers from Manhattan, champagne flowing from the moment guests arrived at 6 p.m. I'd driven up from Brooklyn that afternoon, hitting traffic on the Hutchinson Parkway for 90 minutes. My phone kept buzzing with Slack messages. Our engineering team was doing a late-night deployment. Our sales team had just closed a $3.2 million contract with a healthcare network, and our CFO needed approval on Q1 budget allocations. But none of that mattered as I pulled up to the house in my Honda CR-V. Not fancy. Not impressive. Just reliable. My brother Jake's BMW M5 was already there, gleaming in the driveway like a status symbol. So was Dad's Lexus and my sister Claire's Mercedes SUV. I grabbed my overnight bag and the wine I'd brought, a nice Napa Cab $80, which I knew Mom would passive-aggressively comment on as thoughtful but modest, and headed inside. Rachel. Mom appeared in a red cocktail dress and heels. She looked me up and down with barely disguised disappointment. You wore jeans. I glanced at my outfit, dark jeans, a cream cashmere sweater and boots. Hi Mom. Merry Christmas. We have guests. The Andersons, the Chens, the Williamses. Couldn't you have worn something more festive? I'm festive. I'm here, aren't I? She sighed and took my wine. Well, come say hello to everyone. Your brother just got a promotion. Of course he did. The living room was crowded with family and friends. Dad held court by the fireplace, discussing his latest real estate development, luxury condos in Manhattan. Claire and her husband Brad were showing off photos of their new house in Connecticut. And Jake stood by the bar, surrounded by admirers, explaining his recent promotion to Senior Vice President of Sales at MedCore Solutions. Rachel. Jake spotted me and waved me over. There she is. My baby sister. I was 34. He was 37. But he'd been calling me baby sister my entire life, usually right before dismissing something I'd said. Hi Jake. Congratulations on the promotion. Thanks. It's been a great year. Just closed a $47 million deal with a hospital network in Boston. Biggest contract in company history. He turned to his audience. Rachel here works in tech. Don't you, Rach? I do. What's it called again? Your little startup. Cloud Medics. Right. Cloud Medics. He said it the way someone might say, adorable. What do you guys do again? Some kind of medical software. We provide cloud-based infrastructure for healthcare data management and analytics. Interesting. So like what IT support? Not exactly. We help hospitals and medical practices securely store, analyze, and share patient data across their systems. We integrate with EHRs, imaging systems, lab results, billing. Sounds complicated, Mr. Anderson interrupted. Is there a market for that? There is. Healthcare data is incredibly fragmented. We help solve that problem. Jake laughed. Rachel's being modest. Her company is basically a hobby, right, Rach? You work from your apartment. I work from our office in Manhattan. You have an office? He seemed genuinely surprised. We do. Near Bryant Park. How many people work there? Like 5. More than that. 10, 15. He was grinning now, enjoying himself. Claire and Brad had joined the conversation along with several family friends. We have 380 employees, I said quietly. Jake blinked. 380? Yes. Doing what exactly? Engineering, sales, customer success, operations, finance. Standard company functions. He exchanged a look with Dad. And this is profitable? Yes. How profitable are we talking? Like break even? Making a few $100,000. I could have told him. Right then. I could have said we'd just closed $127 million in revenue, that we'd raised $240 million across 3 funding rounds, that our last valuation was $680 million, that we had 847 healthcare clients including 12 of the top 20 hospital networks in America. But I didn't. We're doing fine, I said instead. Jake laughed again. Fine. Cute. Look, Rach, I'm not trying to be mean. But your little online thing isn't a real business. Not like what I do. MedCore has 4,000 employees globally. We generate $2.3 billion in annual revenue. We're publicly traded. That's a real company. Jake, Mom said gently, I'm sure Rachel is doing her best. I'm not saying she's not. I'm just being honest. Most startups fail. It's statistics. Rachel's been doing this for 6 years now? If it hasn't taken off by now, it's probably not going to. No offense. None taken, I said, even though offense was definitely taken. Maybe it's time to think about getting a real job, Dad suggested. Jake's company is always hiring. I'm sure he could make some introductions. Medcore would love someone with your technical background, Jake agreed. We need people who understand healthcare IT. I could get you an interview. Probably start you at $120,000, $130,000. Good benefits. Stock options. Real career path. Everyone was nodding encouragingly. Like they were doing me a favor. Like I should be grateful. That's generous, I said carefully. But I'm happy where I am. Happy in your apartment working on your little online thing? Claire spoke up for the first time. Rachel, be realistic. You're 34. Don't you want stability? Benefits? A 401k? I have all of those things. Through your startup? Come on. Jake put his hand on my shoulder in what he probably thought was a brotherly gesture but felt condescending. Look, I get it. You're proud. You've put years into this. But sometimes you have to know when to fold. There's no shame in admitting something didn't work out and moving on. Your little online thing isn't a business, Brad added, trying to be helpful. It's a learning experience. A stepping stone. Time to take what you learned and apply it to a real career. The entire room was looking at me with pity. Poor Rachel. Still playing entrepreneur at 34. Still pretending her little hobby was a real company. I set down my wine glass. I need some air. I walked out to the back patio and stood in the cold December night, breathing slowly. My phone buzzed. A Slack message from my COO David Martinez. David, deployment successful. 0 downtime. The engineering team crushed it. Me, excellent. Tell them great work. David, how's the family thing? Me, about as expected. David, they still think you're unemployed? Me, they think I'm running a hobby business from my apartment. David, incredible. When are you going to tell them? Me, I'm not. Let them figure it out on their own. David, you're evil. I love it. I went back inside after 20 minutes. The party had moved on to other topics. Nobody asked where I'd been. The thing is, they had good reason to be skeptical 6 years ago. In 2019, I'd quit my job as a healthcare consultant at Deloitte to start Cloud Medics. Everyone thought I was insane. I'd had a 6-figure salary, partnership track, excellent benefits. And I'd walked away to solve a problem that most people didn't even know existed. Healthcare data was a nightmare. Hospitals had separate systems for patient records, imaging, lab results, billing. Nothing talked to anything else. Doctors wasted hours trying to find information. Patients' records were incomplete. Billing was a disaster. I'd seen it firsthand during my consulting work. And I knew there had to be a better way. The first year was brutal. I burned through $90,000 in savings. I lived on rice and beans. I taught myself cloud architecture and healthcare compliance regulations. I worked 18-hour days building a platform that nobody wanted yet. Cloud Medics launched in 2020 with one client, a small medical practice in Queens that owed me a favor. We managed their data for $500 a month. Then COVID hit. Suddenly, every healthcare provider in America needed better data systems. Telemedicine exploded. Remote patient monitoring became critical. Data sharing across systems wasn't optional anymore. It was survival. Cloud Medics was perfectly positioned. We had the technology, the compliance, the infrastructure. And we could deploy fast. By the end of 2020, we had 47 clients and $2.3 million in revenue. By 2021, we had 230 clients and $23 million in revenue. By 2022, we'd hit 520 clients, raised $85 million in Series B funding, and generated $67 million in revenue. This year, 2025, we had 847 clients, 380 employees, and $127 million in annual revenue. Our Series C round had valued us at $680 million. But my family had no idea. They'd seen my modest apartment in Brooklyn, which I owned outright mortgage-free, but they didn't know that. They'd seen my sensible car, paid cash. They'd seen my casual clothes, comfortable and practical. And they'd decided I was failing. I'd stopped correcting them around year 3. What was the point? They weren't asking real questions. They were making judgments based on appearances. And honestly, part of me wanted to see how long it would take them to notice. To show genuine curiosity. To care enough to ask about my work beyond, how's the computer thing going? 6 years. The answer was 6 years and they still didn't care. 3 weeks after Christmas on a Wednesday afternoon, I was in my office reviewing our Q1 sales pipeline. We had 17 deals in late-stage negotiations, including 3 enterprise contracts worth $10+ million each. My office was on the 23rd floor of our Midtown Manhattan headquarters. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Bryant Park. Modern furniture, dual monitors, walls covered with patents, industry awards and framed articles from Hutchinson News, Modern Healthcare and Forbes about CloudMedics's rapid growth. My assistant Jennifer knocked on my open door. "Rachel, your 3 p.m. is here. Robert Chin from MedCore Solutions." I looked up from my laptop. MedCore? Yes. He's their executive VP of Strategic Partnerships. He's been trying to get a meeting with you for 6 months. This is his 3rd attempt. Jake's company. Did he say what he wants to discuss? Partnership opportunities. He mentioned something about integrating their medical devices with our data platform. I smiled slowly. "Show him in." Jennifer left and returned 30 seconds later with a man in his mid-50s, wearing an expensive suit and carrying a leather portfolio. He was already talking as he entered. "Ms. Morrison, thank you so much for finally agreeing to meet. I know your schedule is." He stopped mid-sentence. He'd just seen my face. The color drained from his cheeks. "Mr. Chin," I said calmly. "Please have a seat." He stood frozen in the doorway, his mouth slightly open. You're Rachel Morrison?" "I am. And you're Jake Morrison's boss, correct?" Yes. I'm the Executive Vice President of Strategic Partnerships at MedCore Solutions. Jake reports to me." "I know. He mentioned his promotion at Christmas. Congratulations on the Boston deal, by the way. $47 million. Impressive." Robert Chen's hands were visibly shaking as he walked to the chair across from my desk and sat down stiffly. He set his portfolio on his lap but didn't open it. "Jake is your brother," he said slowly, like he was processing information in real time. "He is. And you're the CEO of CloudMedics." "Founder and CEO, yes." "Jake never mentioned. I had no idea you were related." "Jake doesn't know what I do. None of my family does, really. They think I run a small hobby business from my apartment." Robert Chin blinked several times. "A hobby business. That's what they call it. My little online thing." He opened his mouth. Closed it. Opened it again. "Ms. Morrison, Rachel, I need to apologize. At our office, Jake talks about his family occasionally. He mentioned he had a sister who plays entrepreneur with some tech startup. He made it sound like you were struggling. Like it was a side project that hadn't worked out. He thinks that because I let him think that." "Why?" "Because he never asked what I actually do. None of them did. They saw how I dressed, where I lived, what I drove, and decided I was failing. They never bothered to Google my name or my company. They just assumed." Robert Chin ran his hand through his hair. "Oh my God. Jake has no idea that CloudMedics is worth $680 million? No, he doesn't. I don't even know what to say. We've been trying to partner with CloudMedics for over a year. We see you as the future of healthcare data integration. We wanted to discuss embedding our device data directly into your platform. It would be huge for both companies." "I'm aware. I've read your proposals. All 3 of them. And I've been considering it. Your medical device technology is excellent. Your market reach is impressive. A partnership could work." "Could work," he repeated. "Not will work. I need to be sure any partnership serves CloudMedics's mission and our clients' needs. That comes before everything else." "Of course. Absolutely." He finally opened his portfolio and pulled out a presentation deck. I prepared a full proposal. Market analysis, integration specs, revenue projections. "Mr. Chin, before we discuss business, I need to address something." He looked up. Yes. Jake can't know about this meeting. Not yet. What? I don't want him to find out I'm the CEO of Cloudmedics from you. He'll find out eventually, but on my timeline, not yours. Rachel, with all due respect, Jake is one of my senior VPs. If we're going to partner with Cloudmedics, he'll need to know. He'll be involved in the integration planning. Then we won't partner. He stared at me. You're serious? Completely serious. My relationship with my family is complicated. I'm not ready for them to know what I've built. Not yet. That's a deal breaker for Medcore, I understand. But those are my terms. Robert Chin sat back in his chair, processing. How long do you need? I don't know. Maybe a few months. Maybe longer. Rachel, I've been chasing this partnership for over a year. Cloudmedics is the crown jewel of healthcare data platforms. If we integrate with you, it transforms our business model. I can't wait indefinitely. I'm not asking you to wait indefinitely. I'm asking you to be patient while I figure out how to handle this situation. And if I agree, if I keep this quiet from Jake and the rest of Medcore's leadership, then we can discuss partnership terms. Not a guarantee, but a real conversation. He drummed his fingers on the portfolio, thinking, I need something in return. Such as a timeline. I need to know when you're going to tell your family. Because eventually this will come out. And when it does, I need to know Medcore won't be caught in the middle of family drama. Fair enough. I'll tell them by April 1st. That gives me 3 months. And if we move forward with a partnership, Jake will need to recuse himself from the Cloudmedics integration team. Conflict of interest. I'd prefer that. Robert Chin extended his hand. Deal. I'll keep this quiet until April 1st. In exchange, you'll give serious consideration to our partnership proposal. I shook his hand. Deal. He smiled for the first time since entering my office. Your brother has no idea what's about to hit him, does he? Not even remotely. Can I ask why you've kept this secret for so long? I leaned back in my chair. Because I wanted to see if anyone in my family cared enough to actually ask about my work. To show genuine interest. To look beyond appearances. They didn't. And that told me everything I needed to know about what they value. That's harsh. Maybe. But I spent 6 years building this company while my family assumed I was failing. I learned to succeed without their belief, their support, their validation. That changes you. I imagine it does. He stood up. I'll send over our updated proposal by Friday. Take your time reviewing it. And Rachel, for what it's worth, Jake talks about you more than you might think. He worries about you. He worries about me embarrassing the family. That's different from caring about me. Robert Chin nodded slowly. You might be right about that. I'll be in touch. After he left, I sat in my office watching the sun set over Bryant Park. My phone rang. Jake. I let it go to voicemail. The next morning, Jennifer knocked on my door again. Rachel, your brother is in the lobby. He doesn't have an appointment, but he's insisting he needs to see you. Jake is here. Yes. He looks upset. I glanced at my calendar. I had a board meeting in an hour, but I could spare 15 minutes. Send him up. Jake appeared 5 minutes later, looking disheveled. His tie was loose, his hair messy. He walked into my office and stopped dead when he saw the space. What the hell is this? He asked. My office. Please sit down. Your office. He was looking around like he'd entered another dimension. At the windows, the furniture, the awards on the walls. This is your office. Jake. This is where I work. This is. He picked up an award from my credenza. Modern Healthcare Innovation Leader of the Year, 2024? You won this. Cloudmedics won it. I accepted on behalf of the company. He set it down carefully and picked up another. Forbes 30 Under 30 Healthcare Technology 2021. You were in Forbes. I was. He found a framed article on the wall. TechCrunch. Cloudmedics raises $240 million Series C at $680 million valuation. He read it out loud, his voice getting higher. The company, led by founder and CEO Rachel Morrison, has grown from a one-person operation to 380 employees and $127 million in annual revenue in just 6 years. He turned to face me. What the fuck, Rachel? Language. Don't do that. Don't act calm. He was breathing hard. My boss just called me into his office. Robertson. My fucking boss. He told me he met with you yesterday. He said you're the CEO of CloudMedics. He said you've been the CEO this entire time. He said our company has been trying to partner with your company for a year. All true. Why didn't you tell us? You never asked. That's bullshit. We asked about your work all the time. You asked if I had a job. You asked when I was going to get a real career. You made fun of my little online thing. You offered to get me an entry-level position at your company. That's not asking about my work, Jake. That's dismissing it. He ran his hands through his hair. At Christmas I said, oh God, I said your startup wasn't a real business. You did. In front of everyone. Yes. And you just let me. I did. Why? I stood up and walked to the window. Because I wanted to see if you cared enough to look. To ask one real question about what I was building. To show actual interest in my life instead of judging it based on appearances. We cared. We were worried about you. You were embarrassed by me. There's a difference. That's not fair. I turned to face him. Jake, you work in healthcare technology sales. CloudMedics is one of the biggest names in healthcare data platforms. We've been in the news constantly for the past 3 years. We've won awards. We've raised hundreds of millions in funding. We're your industry. And you had no idea I founded the company. That's not caring. That's not even basic curiosity. He sat down heavily in the chair across from my desk. Oh my God. Christmas I offered to get you a job. At MedCore. At $120,000 a year. You did. And your company is worth $680 million. As of our last funding round, yes. How much do you own? 63%. He did the math in his head, his face going pale. That's over $400 million. On paper. I can't exactly spend it. Still. He looked up at me. You're worth over $400 million and I offered to help you get an entry-level job. Senior level, actually. You said $120,000 to $130,000. That's not entry-level. Don't joke about this. I'm not joking. I'm pointing out how absurd the situation is. You assumed I was failing without knowing a single fact about my company. About my revenue, my clients, my employees, my growth. You just decided I was pathetic and treated me accordingly. I never said you were pathetic. You said my work wasn't a real business. You said most startups fail and it was time to give up. You said I was still playing entrepreneur at 34. What's the difference? Jake covered his face with his hands. I'm such an asshole. You are. But you're not alone. The entire family thinks the same thing. Does Mom know? Dad? No. They think I run a hobby business from my apartment just like you do. When are you going to tell them? Eventually. When I'm ready. Rachel, this is huge. You can't keep this secret forever. I can keep it as long as I want. It's my company, my success, my choice. He looked at me with something like desperation. What can I do? How do I fix this? You can start by actually asking about my work. Real questions. Not judgmental comments disguised as concern. Questions that show genuine interest in what I'm building and why it matters. Yes. He took a breath. Tell me about CloudMedics. What do you do? How does it work? I spent the next 45 minutes explaining my company to my brother. For the first time in 6 years he actually listened. He asked questions. Real questions about our technology, our business model, our clients, our growth strategy. By the end he was shaking his head in disbelief. You built all of this. By yourself. While we all thought you were failing. I had help. Great employees, supportive investors, early clients who took a chance. But yeah, I built it. I'm so sorry, Rachel. For Christmas, for all of it. I should have believed in you. You should have been curious about me. Belief without knowledge is just blind faith. Fair point. He stood up. Can I tell you something? Go ahead. Robert Chin. My boss, he's been obsessed with partnering with CloudMedics for over a year. He brings it up in every leadership meeting. We need to integrate with CloudMedics. They're the future of healthcare data. I had no idea he was talking about your company. I had no idea my little sister was the CEO he couldn't stop talking about. How does that feel? Honestly, surreal. And humbling. And like I've been the world's biggest idiot for 6 years. Only 6 years. I'd say it's been longer than that. He laughed a real laugh. You're going to hold this over me forever, aren't you? Absolutely. I deserve it. He walked to the door then paused. Are you going to partner with Medcore? I'm considering it. Your technology is good. But I need to make sure any partnership serves my clients first. Of course. That makes sense. He hesitated. For what it's worth, I'm proud of you. I should have said that years ago. I'm proud of you. Thanks, Jake. When are you going to tell Mom and Dad? Soon. Maybe at Easter. I haven't decided. They're going to lose their minds. I know. After he left, I sat in my office for a long time processing. My phone buzzed. A text from David, David, how'd it go with Jake? Me, about as expected. He's in shock. David, is he going to tell your family? Me, I asked him not to. We'll see if he can keep his mouth shut. David, $20 says he tells everyone within 48 hours. Me, deal. I think he'll last at least a week. Jake lasted 3 days. On Saturday morning my phone started blowing up. Mom, Dad, Claire. Everyone calling at once. I let them all go to voicemail. Finally Mom left a message. Rachel Marie Morrison, Jake told us everything. About your company, about your office, about your valuation. Why didn't you tell us? Call me back immediately. I called David instead. You owe me $20, he said immediately. Yeah. Jake cracked. 3 days. I'm actually impressed he lasted that long. What should I do? About what? My family. They all know now. So, let them process it. You don't owe them an immediate explanation. They're going to want to talk. Of course they are. But that doesn't mean you have to drop everything to make them feel better about underestimating you for 6 years. Take your time. He was right. I spent the weekend ignoring calls and texts. By Monday I had 43 voicemails. On Tuesday I finally texted the family group chat. I'm aware Jake told you about Cloud Medics. I'll come to Sunday dinner to discuss. Until then, please give me space. Sunday dinner at my parents' house was the most awkward meal of my life. Everyone was there. Mom, Dad, Jake, Claire and Brad. All sitting around the dining table staring at me like I was a stranger. So, Dad said after 20 minutes of painful small talk. Cloud Medics. Yes. $680 million valuation. That was our Series C round, yes. You own 63%. I do. That makes your stake worth roughly $428 million. On paper. I can't access that money unless we have a liquidity event. Mom set down her fork. Why didn't you tell us? You never asked. That's not an answer. It's the only answer I have, Mom. For 6 years I talked about my company at every family gathering. And every time you dismissed it. You called it a hobby. You suggested I get a real job. You compared me unfavorably to Jake and Claire. You never once asked what I was actually building. Because you lived in a tiny apartment. Claire interjected. You drove an old car. You dressed like a college student. How were we supposed to know you were successful? By asking. By showing curiosity. By caring enough to look beyond appearances. Dad shook his head. This feels like a test we didn't know we were taking. It wasn't a test. It was just life. My life. And you weren't interested in it. That's not fair, Mom said. We love you. We've always loved you. You loved the version of me you wanted me to be. You didn't love, or even try to understand, the person I actually was. Jake spoke up. She's right. I offered to get her an entry-level job at Medcore. At Christmas. In front of everyone. Like I was doing her a favor. I'm the senior VP of sales at her company's potential partner, and I didn't even know she existed. That's different, Dad said. How? Jake works in medical devices, not healthcare data. It's a different sector. Dad, Cloud Medics is in every major healthcare trade publication. We've been featured in Forbes, TechCrunch, Modern Healthcare. Rachel won Healthcare Innovation Leader of the Year. If I'd cared enough to pay attention to my own industry, I would have known who she was. The table went silent. So what happens now? Claire asked quietly. Now. I looked around at my family. Now you know the truth. I built something extraordinary while you all assumed I was failing. That changes our relationship. How? Mom asked. I don't know yet. I need time to figure out how to be part of this family now that you know who I actually am. We've always known who you are, Dad protested. No, you didn't. You knew who you assumed I was. Those are very different things. 6 months later, CloudMedix partnered with MedCore Solutions on a landmark integration project worth $85 million over 5 years. Robert Chin led the negotiations. Jake recused himself from the project due to conflict of interest. The partnership was announced in the Wall Street Journal. The article mentioned that I was Jake Morrison's sister, a detail that apparently shocked several people in the healthcare tech industry who knew us both. My family and I are still rebuilding. Slow, awkward work. Mom asks about the company now. Real questions about our technology and our clients. Dad reads every article about CloudMedix and sends me thoughtful emails. Claire and I have coffee once a month where we actually talk, not just exchange pleasantries. Jake became my biggest advocate. He tells everyone at MedCore about his genius CEO sister. It's a little much, but I appreciate the enthusiasm. Last month, Forbes ran a profile on me, the healthcare tech CEO who built a $680 million company in silence. They interviewed my family. Jake said, I underestimated my sister for years. That's my biggest regret. She taught me that quiet competence builds empires. Mom said, we didn't see what was right in front of us. We won't make that mistake again. Dad said, my daughter succeeded despite us, not because of us. That's something I have to live with. I framed all 3 quotes. Not because I needed their validation, I'd stopped needing that years ago. But because they were finally telling the truth. And truth, even delayed, is worth celebrating.